So good evening, everyone. I hope you are able to hear me clearly, and I'm just sharing my screen and able to see my screen as well.
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's get started. So good evening once again. My name is Sanjay Kumar, and I'm working as a Director of Telecom with Skilling. Right. So in this session, we are going to talk about, what are the new opportunities which are coming up with 5G. Right. And before I start talking about the topic, right, so if you see, we all have these different streams in our college where we talk about EC, where we talk about CS, IT. The kind of, the moment what technology is seeing today, there is a lot of, actually amalgamation which is happening in between these different, streams. Let me take an example. When I was a electronics and communication engineer, when I was doing my engineering, I was very afraid of coding, right? So I never, wanted to write a program or even learn programming languages like C, C++. But today, if I look back, there are a lot of programming you need in telecom, and there is a lot of telecom you need even with the programming. So there is a lot of merger which is happening between these streams, and that's where we will understand, how the future jobs are changing, right? But even after you don't really want to, get into the programming or development kind of roles, telecom is still the industry where you should get into, because programming. I personally never liked programming. But today also I can leave, I can grow, I can actually, make my career in telecom without knowing so much of programming. Of course, learning some basic Linux commands and other stuff is always beneficial, but you really need not to be a developer to work in telecom. And that is the beauty of, so this is for the people who don't really want to get into programming, development and stuff like that, and still want to be a technical job. So telecom is the right industry for that. And cloud also follows the same. So if you don't want to do programming, you can still work in the cloud industry. The second thing is, if you know programming, then that is like, icing on the cake. So that will give you better growth even in the telecom industry. And telecom is more about software today than steel. So you have a lot of jobs available in telecom industry, which includes protocol development, protocol testing, data analytics, network data, like talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all the future networks will be driven by these technologies. So there are a lot of opportunities which are opening up, and in future, and in the upcoming slides, we will be talking about some of these aspects going forward. Let me start my session by greeting. So my name is Sanjay Kumar, and in today's topic, we are talking about 5G, the technology revolution. Right, this session is brought to you by Skilling, which is engineering education platform, which is actually bridging the gap between academia and industry, right? And backed by leading investors like Combinator, Y Combinator, like Iron Pillar, and Skilling partners to many leading organizations like NSDC, like NESCOM. Now, what are the things we are going to discuss today in today's session? Right, whenever we say 5G. Right. What exactly you're looking at 5G? When I say 5G, what are the things you are looking from 5G? Can you please answer this question in the chat box? Can you tell me what are the things you're looking from 5G? Maybe you can send it to me or Mehul. What are the things you're looking from 5G?
Sure, Sanjay. High speed is what I'm getting here.
Yeah, network speed. So if you see, the interesting part here is whenever we talk about 1G, 2G, 3G, or 4G, it is always about the network speed. And so we talk about higher and higher data rate. But if you look from the operator's perspective, from the perspective of Airtel, perspective of Jio, perspective of Vodafone Idea, if they keep on giving you high speed, but don't get money in return, how they are going to run their operation? Let me give you perspective here. Today, almost all of us have one or two mobile phones or one or two SIM cards, right? So maybe we have a dual SIM phone where one number is Sanjay, another number is Sanjay Jio. One number is Mehul, another one is Mehul Jio, right? So we already have two SIM cards. So we already have more than 8 billion mobile connections, which is more than the population of the world. So we have more devices, more mobile connection than the human beings. And secondly, if we really want to look at the last 10, 15 years, this number has grown from 500 million to 8 billion. 500 million devices to 8 billion devices in the last 10, 12 years. And this kind of growth is not possible in next 10 years. You cannot really increase the number of human beings because we already have more devices than the human beings. Just to give you a perspective here, for every 100 citizen in the world, we have 104 mobile connections. So can we increase this number by 10x? The answer is no, we cannot do it. Second factor which affects the operator's revenue is ARPU. Average revenue per user. Average revenue per user means how much money you are going to earn from every user. So today, if I'm paying 200 rupees to Jio, that becomes the Jio's ARPU for me, or for a user like me. So basically, if they have 100 customer, and if they are earning 200 rupees from every customer, their revenue becomes 20,000 rupees. So that is their revenue, for example. Now, tomorrow 5G comes and operator says, instead of 200 rupees, I am going to charge you 1,000 rupees. Am I going to pay? Again, my answer is no. I'm not going to pay 1,000 rupees for a mobile connection, because if I have to achieve higher data rate, I may use Wi-Fi where I'm already paying some amount at my home, right? So operators cannot increase the number of devices. Operator cannot increase the ARPU from every user. Then how they are going to make money? Because they are investing huge amount of, so they have, just to give in a perspective, they are actually investing around 1.5 lakh crores just in the spectrum. Just to buy the spectrum, they are spending this much money. So overall investment will be somewhere around 10 lakh crores. 10 lakh crores will be the total investment of companies like Airtel, Jio, and Vodafone. Right. Now, from where they are going to earn this money? And the answer is 5G is not going to talk about only speed. 5G is going to talk much more than this. 5G is going to talk about much more than this, and that is something what we are going to discuss in the upcoming slide. 5G networks are very different from the previous generation, and we will talk about that in the upcoming slides. Now, whenever we talk about cloud is something which is typically a remote data center. First of all, people say that, hey, this is only for storage. That is the biggest misconception people have when they talk about cloud. Cloud is not only about storage. Cloud can give you everything which a computer can give you, right? Now, why cloud is becoming important for 5G, we are going to discuss. We will also see the biggest operators in the world, biggest companies in the world, how they are deploying their future networks. You will also see, hey, what is going to happen on 6G, right? What is beyond 5G and how we are moving towards 6G, and what we should expect in 6G kind of network. At the end, we will talk about some of the job opportunities available in the 5G world. Now, I'll not talk about these things. This is already explained by Mehul, so I'll not spend time here in talking about all these things which is mentioned on this slide. So you will get the recording of the session on a YouTube channel, and you will be getting the link from our team. Now, little bit about me. I'm Sanjay Kumar, working as a director of telecom with Skilling. I have worked with multiple organizations, over 20 years of work experience. Out of that, 15 years I have spent into training. Right, out of these 15 years, I've trained people in more than 50 countries. Right, I'm an ex-AWS Authorized Instructor and AWS Certified Solution Architect. Technologies I have worked, starting from wireline to 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G technology I've worked with. Some other domains of telecom I've worked with. I've worked with multiple products, which includes from companies like Samsung, Nokia, Ericsson, ZTE, and Cisco. Right, so that's a brief introduction about me. I will also share my LinkedIn profile in the chat box at a later stage. So if you find it interesting, please feel free to follow me or connect to me on LinkedIn. Now, why to learn 5G? Now, why? Because we already have 4G running. We already have people working on 4G. Why do we really need to learn 5G? 5G, sorry, just give me a second. "5G requires so many different skills which were not there in 4G. And because of that, there is a huge skill gap. There is a huge skill gap which has come up in telecom industry, where companies are actually struggling to hire people. And currently, if we see, the 1 million jobs are available, right? So these kind of, number of jobs are available in different kind of domain related to 5G. And overall, maybe in next 3 to 5 years, you will need 22 million people who will work on 5G network directly and indirectly. Just to give you perspective, BSNL, for example, is yet to build their 4G network. And this particular project, this BSNL 4G project, will be an investment of 53,000 crore for the government. So basically, government will be spending around 53,000 crore rupees just in the BSNL deployment. And that will create a lot of jobs. That will create a lot of jobs and opportunities for engineers. Not only that, Government of India is want to make India as a Atmanirbhar Bharat on 5G and 6G. So what they've done is, they have created a forum, a body called CBIT, which is a collaboration of all the IITs, and all these IITs are actually doing a lot of research and building the products on telecom, which can be exported to global market over the period of time. So there is a lot of, push which is coming from the government. If you look at a newspaper, they have recently, announced that we will be building 100 5G test labs with the investment of 550 crore rupees. So government of India is spending a lot of money, they're doing a lot of investments in 5G, in semiconductor, in VLSI. So there is a lot of actually traction happening even from the government side of it. Telecom industry is growing at a fast pace. So just to give you a perspective, I started working in 4G in 2011. In 2011, I started working in 4G. And today, in 2023 also, I am still doing 4G trainings. I recently did a 4G training for one of the leading hyperscaler, one of the leading cloud company, which we use on daily basis, right? So I did 4G trainings for them. Now, 5G started in 2020 approximately. So it is going to have at least next 5 to 10 years where there are going to be a lot of opportunity available for this particular technology. So that is going to give you, a lot of benefits if you learn 5G at this point of time. Now, let me talk about something called as top 10 tech trends that is going to transform our world. And this is not as per my research, this is as per the research of Forbes. These are the top 10 technology trends. Now, you may get surprised here. Hey, you are talking about 5G, 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 but we don't see 5G in anywhere in these top technology trends. But one important thing which is common in all these technology trends is data. Collecting data from lot of sensors, lot of devices. Can you collect this data with wired network? The answer is no. If you really want to connect billions of devices, if you really want to collect the data from billions of devices, the answer has to be wireless. The networks has to be wireless, the connectivity has to be wireless, and that's where 5G plays a very, very important role. So just to give you a perspective here, all these use cases, or if not all, most of these use cases, they will be relevant only with the connectivity of 5G. So 5G actually enables a lot of new use cases which are going to transform our world in the future, right? Now, let's get started with the discussion on evolution to 5G. And if we really talk, I'll not bore you with these technical details, just like you have Android phone, just like you have Windows, just like you have Apple Mac, and they come up with a lot of software releases, some kind of minor upgrades, some kind of major upgrades. So all the telecom standards are created by a body called as 3GPP, Third Generation Partnership Project. 3GPP or Third Generation Partnership Project, and they come up with multiple different releases. So release 9, release 10, release 11. I'll not get into the details of this, but release 15 was the first commercial release for 5G, and it was introduced somewhere around 2017. So that is just to give a perspective. We'll not get into the details of what are these features which are shown here, because that will be a little more complex here, right? But sorry, let us understand how 5G is different from the previous generation. How 5G is different from the previous generation. Now, if we look till 4G, okay, let me give you another perspective here before we talk about 4G. Now, if I look at 2G networks, if I look at 2G networks, 2G networks were primarily designed for voice and SMS. They were designed for voice and SMS. After that, we did some kind of add-ons which were called as GPRS, and then it was called as Edge, which gave you some kind of data rates in the tunes of 10 to 20 kbps, which were as low as 10 to 20 kbps. That's where we started talking about 3G, third generation, which later evolved into something called as HSPA and HSPA plus. And these networks gave us data rate in the range of 2 Mbps and going up to 21 Mbps. Right. So if you see, every time we are moving with data, moving higher with the data rates. Then 4G came, and 4G also had multiple versions called as LTE and LTE Advanced, where LTE gave us data rates of 300 Mbps and LTE Advanced gave us data rate of 1 Gbps. You may say, hey, you are saying that, hey, 4G gives us data rate of 1 Gbps. 4G gives a data rate of 1 Gbps, but we never get it, right? How much data rate we normally get with LTE Advanced or 4G, for example? We get at least a maximum 10 to 20 Mbps. Then why we are talking about 1 Gbps? Let me give you an idea here. Now, whenever I talk about these data rates, these data rates are not the data rates which are given to the end user. These are the data rates which are the peak data rate of the network. Now, let me explain this. Now, for example, if I have $100 with me, and I have to share those $100 with 10 people, what everyone is going to get is $10. But if I have 100 people to share the same amount of money, every person is going to get only $1. So what does that mean? So typically, whenever you go to a crowded area, whenever you go to an area where there is a lot of people using the mobile phones and using a lot of services, your data rate will drastically go down. And the reason for that is the overall data rate of the network is fixed, and network has to share that data rate among the users. And more users using those data rates, lower will be the data rate for end user. So basically, every time when you have more users in your network, in the area where you are in currently, you have to share the data rates with the users. And so this 1 Gbps roughly translates into 10 to 20 Mbps for every user. However, the 5G talks about 20 Gbps data rate. Now, what happens? Instead of $100 with me, now it is $2,000. I made it 20 times. If I made it 20 times, now if I have these number of people are same, this is also going to increase their data rate This is also going to increase their data rate by at least 20 times. So basically, whenever we are getting higher data rates with the network, that is also going to increase our data rates in that particular network. So 5G, one important use case, one important requirement for 5G is to have higher data rate, but not the only requirement. Why I'm stressing on this point, not the only requirement, because it comes with multiple different use cases. Multiple different use cases. What are these use cases? One of the important use case, what we have discussed just now, is enhanced mobile broadband connection, EMBB, what we have discussed just now, and that supports use cases like media everywhere, connecting to data everywhere, talking about ultra high definition broadcast, 3D videos, 4K, 8K, 4K, 8K, ultra high definition, transferring gigabits in a second. Just to give you an idea here, if you have a good 5G connection, you can download a full HD movie in less than 3 seconds. That kind of speeds what you can get from 5G. Enabling use cases like augmented reality, virtual reality, getting high data rate in the high-speed train up to 500 kilometers per hour. Right? These are some of the use cases for EMBB. But as I mentioned earlier, 5G is not only about higher data rate or the broadband services. 5G also enables a lot of new use cases like MMTC, massive machine type communication, means connecting many devices. And just to give an idea here, currently we are at the 8 billion devices which are connected to the wireless network. By 2027, we want to make these devices to 40 billion devices. That means 40 billion devices will be connected to wireless network. So we want to have another 5x devices in 5 years. That is something what we are looking for in next 5 years, right? So these massive machine type communication are for the use cases like tracking, smart meters. Nowadays, every electric meter, every water meter, every gas meter, they are all connected with the wireless sensors. Fleet management, smart homes, smart buildings, smart cities. These are the devices which are going to be massive in numbers. And network has the capability to support up to 1 million devices per square kilometer, right? And they should send very, very small data volume, should be very, very low cost. And in some use cases, we are expecting battery life of more than 10 years with a coin cell battery, right? So they should be very, very power efficient. You cannot expect a farmer to change their 100 sensors and change their batteries every day. Not possible. So if you are talking about smart farming, if you're talking about smart cities where every dustbin is connected to internet, you cannot expect those smart dustbins to be charged every day. So we want these devices to work with a coin cell battery for up to 10 years. That is the kind of power efficiency we are looking at, right? Ultra reliable low latency communication. So what we are trying to do here is we want network where our latencies are less than 1 millisecond. What do we mean by latency, right? When I say latency, typically, if I ask you a question, in how much time I get the response, that is called as latencies or the delays. Now, if you really want to run a autonomous car, self-driving car, if you don't want to do a remote surgery, if you want to run your factories with these kind of technologies, the response time has to be very fast. The response time has to be very fast, and the latency should be lower than 1 millisecond. The latency should be lower than 1 millisecond. So you want this response to be very fast, and for that, you need to fine-tune your network. So you need to fine-tune your network so that you can meet these requirements. So these are different type of use cases and different kind of networks, different kind of devices which has to be connected to the network. And this is what is brought by 5G. Now, this is the 5G network architecture. I'll not get into the details of all these boxes. If you really want to know more about these boxes, we have created a series of presentation on our YouTube channel, where I talk about each and every block here and what exactly they do. Right. But just to talk about the boxes here, the top box, what you see here, these boxes are not physical boxes. These boxes are not physical boxes, but they are software applications. They are software applications communicating, let me put it this, they are software application located in a cloud environment and talking to each other in the protocols like HTTP2. So basically, the kind of communication which is happening in the network functions of 5G is mostly happening in the way it happens in the IT world. The most popular protocol in the IT world is HTTP2, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And now we are also using the same HTTP2, same cloud in our core networks, in telecom networks as well. And because of that, the 5G requires a lot of cloud skills. And that is the biggest pain point for the people who are working with the industry currently. So most of the people who are working with the industry currently, they don't have these skills. They don't understand what cloud is. They don't understand, what are these HTTP2 kind of protocol. And that gives a lot of opportunities to the new entrants, the people who want to enter, in this market as a fresh mind, right? Now, talking about cloud intervention in telecom, because all these network functions, all these deployments are happening on the cloud. So complete 5G network is going to be deployed on cloud, right? So cloud intervention is one of the important aspects for telecom, and that is creating the biggest skill gap. That is creating the biggest skill gap in the industry currently. Now, why cloud becomes important? Now, let us take an example. The Flipkart, for example, is running their billion sale, the big billion sale, they call it. Big billion sale. On one fine day, they will have huge traffic on their network. They will have huge traffic on their network. So what they do is, they do something called as scaling, or they say scalability of their cloud resources. So what is scalability? Scalability means whenever you want to increase the resources, you can increase it. Whenever you want to decrease it, it will decrease it automatically. So the network will automatically give more processors, more RAM, more CPUs to the applications which are running the big billion sale. Whenever that traffic has gone down, it will again reduce the number of CPUs, number of the RAM units, and a number of other resources. It will bring it down and go run with the lower capabilities. However, telecom networks were not like that. Telecom networks were mostly driven by the boxes, hardware boxes, and you cannot increase these hardware boxes with the click of a button. So just to take an example, the maximum amount of traffic what used to happen in wireless network used to happen on the 31st December between 12 to 1 a.m. Actually, not 31st December, has to be 1st of January. 1st of January of that year, 12 to 1 a.m., we used to have maximum traffic. And you won't believe, working with companies like Bharti Airtel, we used to start working on this capacity, what is required in this particular hour. We used to work on these capacities starting from July of previous year. So we used to work for 5-6 months to build the capability for this 1 hour. And after this 1 hour, it goes drastically down. So the capacities what we have built for just 1 hour, they are wasted for next few months because people are not using it, right? But cloud can give you flexibility where it can increase the capacity and also decrease the capacity, which was not possible with the traditional hardware-based network. And that's why most of these networks are moving towards the cloud-based architecture, where they can increase the capacity, decrease the capacity whenever they want it. And they need not to do it manually. It happens automatically. So it is like you are creating an account on AWS and they pay you, they charge you with the concept which is called as pay as you go. So pay as you go means if you use more capabilities, pay more. If you use less capability, pay less. And you just need to have the right configuration, and they keep on decreasing or increasing your capabilities according to the need of your workloads. According to the need of your workloads. Right. Now, this is the reason the cloud is becoming a front runner even in the telecom, becoming very, very important in the telecom networks. In today's world, you can't really survive, you can't really grow in the telecom industry without knowing clouds. This is become so important. Right. So this is how the networks are being built, and this uses concepts like Docker, Kubernetes. I'll not get into all these names what are shown here. It may be a little too technical here, but what is happening today that the softwares what were earlier used as monolithic software, as a single piece of code, now those softwares are broken down into multiple microservices. Microservices are smaller piece of those codes. And all these microservices are hosted in the containerized environment. So basically these containers are some Docker runtime, and they are orchestrated by using Kubernetes. Has anybody heard about Docker Kubernetes in this set? Any of you have heard about Docker Kubernetes? Can you let me know? Okay. Anyone else who has heard about Docker Kubernetes? Rishabh says no. Okay, no problem. Let us try to understand. So what is happening? Earlier, one second. Earlier, when we used to carry, our materials from one country to another country. So what they used to do is, they used to have trucks, right? So they used to have trucks, and we used to load all the material to the truck. This truck goes to a ship, right? This truck goes to a ship. We offload all these goods here. We offload all these goods here. And then this ship goes to other country. We take out all these stuff and put them onto another truck, right? So we have to offload here and we have to again unload here, right? Now, because of this, managing all these materials were very, very difficult, because all these things will get mixed. There will be used warehouse on the ship and everything will get very messy. So at a later stage, what they did was, instead of, putting all these material here in the truck and then offloading it here and then unloading it here, what they started doing is, they have started picking up these containers, and put these containers. Okay, let me just use another color here. So they have started putting these containers directly on the ship. So instead of, offloading and unloading and loading again, they have started putting this container here, and at the receiving place, they actually put this container itself on the truck. Right. So this is how the concept of container started. Now, what they're doing here is, so consider this as a big shipment. So what they're doing is, they're breaking down the software into smaller microservices, and now whenever you are actually implementing it, you're not implementing this software, but implementing these microservices differently. So these microservices can be independently scaled. They can increase the capacity. So one container can be 12-foot container. Another container can be 24-foot container. Another container can be 36 feet container, right? So depending, so one microservices can use one CPU. Another microservices can use two CPUs. Another microservices can use three CPUs. So different microservices can have different type of capabilities, and they can scale independently. That's the benefit what we get from the containerization. Now, what is Docker? Docker is the one who offloads and loads these stuff into the truck. So this is a name which is used for the people who are working on the ports, who are actually offloading, unloading, loading these materials in the truck and the ship, right? Kubernetes is a Greek word which is typically about steering the ship, in which directions ships should go, right? So these are some stories which we need to understand. But today, the whole net, so whatever you do on Facebook, whatever you do on Google, whatever you do on Amazon, they are using some of these kind of technologies, if not these, some similar technologies to actually process your workload. So these are pretty much in every cloud, every telecom, and every IT company. So you need to know all these things if you're working with any IT, telecom, or cloud related companies, right? I'm sure many of you have heard about DevOps. DevOps, development and operation, right? Again, that is related to the, so earlier you used to build the software and then test it and then put it into the workloads. Now you have to do it in the process. So it's a continuous process. We call it a CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development, right? So these are the different things which are happening in the telecom world. DevOps was mostly related to IT world, but today in telecom, you can't really live without DevOps. The whole telecom networks are nowadays based on DevOps kind of technologies, right? This is more related to the how operators are deploying their network, Just to take an example, now the 5G mobile network operator, for example, Jio, what they're doing is they are actually building their network on some kind of data centers. They are building some kind of capabilities on their edge cloud, and they are putting a lot of base stations. So these are cell sites. These are the towers, what you see around your home, around your office, around your college, right? At a later stage, they did some changes where they moved away from proprietary interfaces to the open interfaces. And that's where a company like Rakuten comes into play. Rakuten is the fourth largest mobile operator in the Japan. Now, you may say, hey, we are sitting in India. Why we are talking about a company of Japan, Rakuten? Now, just to give an idea, Rakuten's engineering teams sitting here in India. So all the global operators, all the global companies, be it Ericsson, be it Nokia, be it Samsung, be it Rakuten, Dish Wireless, these are some global companies. But their major technical workforces are sitting here in India. So Rakuten have a big office in Indore. Rakuten has a big office in Indore. They are hiring a lot of people. They have a big office in Bangalore as well. They have some other locations as well. So they have around 5,000, 6,000 people sitting here in India working on the technology. Some companies like Ericsson, some companies like Nokia, right? These companies have people in the range of 40,000 people just working on these technologies and sitting here in India, in Noida, in Gurgaon, in Bangalore, Chennai, Pune, etc. So majority of telecom companies in the world, their major workforces are sitting here in India. They are managing not only operators like Airtel and Jio and Vodafone, they are managing more than 200 operators, 200 plus operators from India, right? So whenever the signal goes off in the KL Tower or at Burj Khalifa or maybe Times Square, New York, before they get to know about it, the engineer sitting here in Gurgaon or Noida gets to know about it. So we are managing operations of more than 200 operators from Indian cities. Now, to do this, you need a lot of money. You need to invest a lot of money in building data centers. But if you don't have money, you can go the Dish Wireless way. Dish Wireless is the 4th largest mobile operator in the US. What they have done is they have built their whole infrastructure on AWS. I'm sure most of you have heard about AWS. AWS is called as Amazon Web Services, AWS or Amazon Web Services, and they have actually deployed their whole 5G network infrastructure on AWS. And interestingly, let me show you another thing here. If I go to Google and I say, hey, AWS private 5G. So you can go to Amazon website. And actually order for a private 5G network. So if you want to build a special network for yourself, you can go to AWS website and order it on AWS. So not only the cloud resources, even telecom networks are available on demand now, right? AWS also comes with some server racks, which can be used for some of the telecom networks called as AWS Outpost. Now, 5G is dead. Let's talk 6G. So if you look around, there are people who say, hey, 5G is gone. Let's start talking about 6G. But now I answer it differently. I say that, hey, if 5G doesn't become successful, 6G will never come. Why? Now, in 5G, operators are putting billions of dollars of investments. If they are not able to make money, are they going to deploy 6G? The answer is no. Operator will never get courage to invest, in 6G if 5G doesn't become successful. They've already invested huge money in 5G. And 5G is, have another 10 years to grow because we are still running. Majority of the users are still 4G users. It will take another 5-6 years to move to 6G and another 10 years to, obsolete 4G. And that is the kind of time frame what we have got to work on the 5G networks. However, just to understand what do we expect with 6G, in 6G, what we expect is we are going to have global coverage. We have already started talking about satellite internet, where we had companies like Starlink from Elon Musk, right? I'm sure some of you have already heard about it. So they are providing internet over satellite. Unmanned aerial vehicle, drones, right? So nowadays, there are not a lot of stuff. There are many drones which are 5G enabled, and they can do the remote surveillance. They can do, N number of other functions. They can even provide you wireless network with the unmanned aerial vehicle. Terrestrial network, the towers, what we see on the ground. Maritime, ship-based network, right? So how the ships are going to provide networks in the sea. So basically what we are trying to achieve is the global coverage, and there is a convergence where all these coverage can get mixed and can provide you seamless services across any different kind of territory, right? Talking about lot of spectrum, sub-6 gigahertz, millimeter wave, terahertz, optical. So these may be too little too technical at this stage, but spectrum is one of the biggest issue and biggest bottleneck for wireless network, right? So we need to bring in a lot of spectrum to give you the things which are expected by the 6G network. Secure networks, physical layer, network layer, application. If you see it nowadays, every day we hear about cyber crime. So money gets deducted from the account and a number of other stuff happens, right? So now we have to make our networks very secure. Otherwise, tomorrow somebody will actually hack the Airtel network, hack the Geo network, and do whatever they want, right? So we have to make our networks very secure. Security is the biggest problem for the wireless networks today. And the way things are moving, AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, data analytics, deep learning, they are going to become very, very important for the telecom world, right? Now, what kind of jobs available in telecom? First of all, let me talk about it. The jobs in telecom are technical. At the same time, they don't really require you to do the coding. That's what I have explained earlier. So it is a kind of different kind of jobs today. So you have jobs which are technical in nature, but where you don't really need programming, development, and stuff like that. There is another category of the roles in telecom itself where you have to work on the technologies, but at the same time, you also need to know coding. You also need to know the testing of these protocol stacks and stuff like that. And the second category will give you slightly higher growth compared to the previous category, right? Today, okay, let me ask you a question. All right, so do you think, I've named many companies, right? So what are working in telecom? But even if I talk about a company like TCS, a company like Infi, company like Wipro, company like HCL, company like Tech Mahindra. Do you think these companies are working in telecom? Yes or no? Can you answer in the chat box? Can you answer in the chat box? Do you think these companies are working in telecom? Sandeep says yes. What about others? Okay. Anshuman says no. Okay. So let me give an idea. Put together, they have lakhs of people. They have lakhs of people working precisely on telecom. And you will be surprised to see that. You will be surprised to see that you go to LinkedIn, and start looking for their head of telecom, the person who is handling their 5G networks, right? The person who handles their telecom network operations. 90% of the people, even working in US, even working in Europe, right? Even working in Europe, they will be all Indians. They will be all Indians, right? So most of these global networks are managed by these kind of companies, and their global heads are mostly Indians. This is the kind of strength what we have got into these areas, and that's where we have to build on. So just to give an idea, as per some reports from Telecom Sector Skill Council, India will need some kind of 22 million by 2025. Current demand supply gap is 28%, and that has to be actually filled by the freshers. So people has to upskill themselves and apply for those kind of jobs and fill those gaps so that this gap, 28% gap, can be filled. Right. So that's all from my side.